Wait, sorry, let me zoom out.
Hi! I guess since this is the first ever video of the channel, I should do a sort of introduction. My name's Sam. Sam is short for salmon, which is what I am. I know salmon don't actually look like this, I'm basically just a salmon-colored goldfish, but yeah, this is who you'll be forced to acknowledge is me. Anyways, this channel was kind of a planned thing, kind of impulsive. I just wanted to make some cute, maybe ugly things out of clay because I love the medium so much, and I thought, why not document it? I'm by no means a professional, I just sculpt small things for fun. This is an experiment to see if I can make something decent, so I hope you enjoy the process. Alrighty, on to the sketching. As you can probably tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be sculpting Pokémon. I had this idea brewing in my head about how cool it'd be to have type-based sculptures. Type as in water, electric, rock, and so on. Like a whole series of them, which would make such a cool display. So I went ahead and started with grass since it's my favorite typing. The scene I came up with was a show or a theatrical performance on a tree stump stage, and they'd be surrounded by a small audience. I didn't want to try anything too crazy or big because, like I said before, I'm very much a beginner sculptor, and a lot of these materials I'll be using for the very first time. I wanted to fit in so many of my favorite grass type Pokemon, but I didn't think that would be feasible, so I just decided to narrow it down to 6. So I went with Gesso, Whimsicott, Bounsweet, Swadloon, Sunflora, and Shaymin.
And those are our 6.
Sculpting!
I made a cylindrical form out of aluminum foil to be the innards of the tree trunk.
Cause yes, before we make any cute Pokemon, we need to make this dang trunk.
I wrapped the entire thing in clay, excluding the bottom since I'll be gluing it to a base, so there's really no need to cover that area. To give it more depth and character, I added grooves to make it a little worn out. I kind of freehanded a lot of the detailing because it was just more fun that way than actually following the image that I drew. And here I added this swirly bit. It is very random, but I kinda love it. It gives the tree trunk so much character. There we go, our stage is completed.
Next.
I'm wrapping this small ball of foil with clay and prepping to smooth on several lumps, because this is our Whimsicott. He's a fluffy cotton ball, so there's lots of puff to him that I need to add on for his puffy hair, his puffy chest floof, just lots of it. His body was by far the cutest little thing I sculpted. The pose looks so triumphant. Placing him on the stump, and ta-da!
Next.
It's Bounsweet's turn.
You see this back here? Yeah, ignore it. It's not worth being looked at.
Okay, fine. You see, this Goomba looking thing was my first try. It's very large, and it came out more like a mushroom. So it dies, gets peeled like an orange, skinned. Goodbye. Back to my cuter child. Must make your leaf hairs. Your stem. And perfect!
Next.
The biggest one yet, Skiddo. I must admit he was very complicated to make, but kind of fun at the same time. With the tufts of cheek fluff and his horns. It was all pretty enjoyable. I had to split the process into head first, then body, so that's why I'm just now covering the lower half in clay. I made a bunch of fur bits because Skiddo's kinda shaggy, and then placing them all on was a bit tedious, but eventually he was covered. And all that was left was to dress him in foliage. Now that I think about it, he kinda looks like an old fancy ottoman. And Skiddo's done.
Next.
Time for Swadloon, the most relatable Pokemon to ever exist. Just in his blanket burrito and chilling. Probably got dragged out to this unwillingly. He was pretty easy to sculpt, since he's very smooth and simple. After I got his roundness all evened out, all that was left were his leaf parts. And here he is, all done.
Next.
Now Sunflora is a different story. I made the smallest, weirdest looking armature for her because I so brilliantly decided her pose was gonna be her in mid-dance. It was a struggle, but I figured it out and quickly clayed it all up, if that's the proper terminology. Official Sunflora has more petals, but for mine I only made her 9. And I may have squirted out too much liquid Sculpey. So, whoops, I'm just gonna use it all up over here. This is where I realized the petals were way too big and most likely would not fit. I just ripped them off and remade them much smaller. It looks so much better.
Once I completed her dancy leaf arms and put them on, she was finished. On to Shaymin. Oh, I forgot to show off the finished Sunflora sculpt. I kinda just left her lying there. Oh well.
Next.
I clayed up the tiny bit of foil and sculpted its snoot. The way I did the back grass tufts is the same method I did with Whimsicott, piling on the lumps that I can smooth out later on. Making the tiny flowers were so hard because my massive fingers were in the way and I had to make sure it was perfectly shaped. But they end up looking pretty okay. Tiny Hedgehog is completed. Last minute, I sculpted pieces of grass to stick onto the stump because I forgot to do that earlier. I also made small rocks and more grass to later glue onto the base and complete the scene. Here's all of them together, ready to get baked and primed.
Paint time!
If you're wondering why all the sculpts are kinda white, it's because I primed them with a thin layer of gesso. I'm not sure it was necessary, but hey, I have gesso, so I might as well use it. I painted in some cartoonish looking highlights to make it pop, but now looking back, maybe I shouldn't have chosen the most diarrhea looking shade of brown to highlight with. But it is what it is. Look, even with the diarrhea brown, I still like how it turned out.
Next.
I mixed a cream, brown, and darker green color for Whimsicott. He's looking like a delicious piece of popcorn right now. Imagine if I just had 100 of them. Whimsicott is painted.
Next.
For Brown Sweet, I mixed a magenta color, a green, and an off-white. Fairly simple. I had to be super careful with how I painted in its little face, but I got it and she's finished.
Next.
Just like the sculpting process for Skiddo, the paint job was also a lot. I mixed a dark brown, dark gray, lots of greens, and a cream color. I was going to pencil in a template for his face so I knew where to paint, but I kinda just went ahead and winged it.
The most fun part, in my opinion, was painting in the spots of light green on his back. They were all very randomly placed, and I just shut off my brain while I was working. Skiddo's paint job is done.
Next.
For Swadloon, I mixed a warm light green and a bright yellow. Look at his face! He's so unamused. Okay, I kinda messed up and completely missed the fact that Swadloon has extra plant fringes that connect to his cocoon. So, off screen, I scrambled to sculpt and glue them onto him. I then painted that a dark green.
Next.
I mixed many shades of yellow and a light green for Sunflora. She was also a fairly easy one to paint since it was only a couple colors. Sunflora finished.
Next.
Last but not least, Shaymin's colors are light green, pink, and an off-white. Oh, and a little bit of yellow. It was incredibly difficult to paint something so teeny. I kept having to fix many little mistakes. And eventually it was finished.
Next.
Now time to paint the base, which is not actually even a base, it's just a wooden ornament that I thought would work perfectly. I gotta remind myself next time to gesso this before I start painting because the wood is really sucking up a lot of the paint. Look at me, gessoing things that might not need it but forgetting to gesso the things that do. Good job, Sam. I know in my sketch the grass patch was more abstract and poofy, but that was drawn before I decided to use a flat round base. I used lots of greens and painted in spots of lighter green to act as light patches. Then, to make it more grass-like, I sprinkled in little grass blades everywhere. And the base is ready. Here's me trying to figure out where they should be placed before I glue everything down.
Success! Whoopee!
Besides a few minor things, the sculpture version looks pretty accurate to my sketch, which I'm incredibly proud of myself for accomplishing. Thank you so much for watching and sticking with me till the end. Stay tuned for more projects of mine. I might do water or fire type next, or maybe something completely different. Who knows?
Bye-bye!